Welcome to the Expansive Astrology Podcast, where we look at using astrology beyond the tropes and horoscopes to tune into the natural forces around us and within us, honoring our true nature to craft our future. I'm your host, Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I'm here to help you meet your magic. Without further ado, let's begin this week's episode with a tarot reading for the collective. Hi, welcome back to the Expansive Astrology Podcast. This is episode 44, where I am going to tell you everything you need to know about Aries season and Aries energy and how to utilize it to be even better. This is your Aries season episode. This is the first season where I am only doing one episode. So I have like 4 weeks of material to give you all just today. So, and it's like, it's one of my favorites. It's maybe my top favorite is Aries season, might be my top favorite, at least when it comes to expansive astrology and the invitations that Aries can bring. So I have a lot to share with you. I hope you will love it just as much as I love it. I'm so happy to be here. I took a few weeks off as a nice little break, and I really, really needed that. And I've also been really anxious to get back to it. So that feels really good. I'm just buzzing with excitement. I am so excited for this. But as always, first things first, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I have a collective tarot reading for you, inspired by Lindsay Mack. This is a 4-card spread examining what is present for us for the collective this Aries season, what we're learning this Aries season, and what we can kind of use as an anchor as we move throughout the Aries season. Take a shot every time I say Aries season. Just kidding. Absolutely do not do that. Take a swig of water every time I say Aries season, and you will be a hydrated queen or king. Here is your collective tarot reading for the season. Take what you need and leave the rest. If anything I say today doesn't quite resonate, that's okay. And I encourage you to stay open to seeing how these things may play out for you over the next couple of weeks, because if you're hearing this, I trust that you're meant to hear it. First off, present for us, who came flying out of the deck, is the Lover's card. Lover's energy is so beautiful and so totally freaking imperative. Like, it can't be understated how important Lover's energy is, or the medicine that the Lovers can bring. And as a reminder, I mostly read from Soul Tarot Theory by Lindsay Mack, and this is very much her take on the Lovers, and it's different than what you often hear with this card. And actually, one of my favorite ways to illustrate this card is to kind of tell you about my personal experience with learning the Lover's card and Lover's energy. Back before I really learned and took a course in Soul Tarot Theory, I thought of the Lovers the way that many people do. This card is typically seen as luck in love, right? It's typically seen as a good omen when it comes to relationships, whether that's romantic or friendly. That seems to be the common telling of this card. And in my baby tarot teller days, I saw it that way too. And one of my first most potent experiences with the Lover's card, I think it was our first camping trip. It was one of the first times that I went camping with my now husband, but we were still pretty new at the time. And we were not getting along very well. There was I don't even remember the details, right? But it was one of those situations where there was just a lot of stress and chaos with this trip camping. A lot of stress getting packed up and getting up the mountain and finding a camping spot. We were just kind of conflicting, not feeling the partnership, not feeling very cohesive at all. We were kind of on different planes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is annoying me. How are we going to make it through this camping trip? Is he even the one for me? It was bringing up all sorts of things. And so I went to my tarot deck, as I do, and I asked, what do I need to know about this camping trip? What do I need to know about this man? What am I doing here? Is this going to work out? Is this working, And the card that I pulled was the Lovers. And I was elated. I was so happy. I was able to breathe a huge sigh of relief, because to me, in my knowledge at the time, that meant that we were going to get married and have lots of babies and that everything was going to be happily ever after. Now, spoiler alert, that is what happened. I did marry him, and we're building this happily ever after over here, right? But that's not what the card was doing. That's not what the card was trying to tell me. However, the medicine still came through, because that's what I thought it was telling me. I pulled that card, and suddenly our conflicts and our chaos getting up to this camping trip didn't matter so much to me. Suddenly those things weren't a bad sign that the trip was going to go terribly, and in fact, the relationship was going to go terribly. I pulled the Lovers card, and suddenly all of our little arguments didn't matter so much, because I was looking at this man as my lover. I saw this man as my partner. And that mindset shift changed me. It impacted how I was showing up entirely. It completely changed how I was showing up to him, to our conflicts, to the chaos, and to the camping trip. Having this belief that the card was telling me that everything was fine and this was my future life partner, it changed me. I was no longer feeling so egoic and defensive. I was no longer, it didn't feel as important to me that I was right, Suddenly all that mattered was this partnership and growing the love and really enjoying the camping trip. What pulling this card did was have me reclaim my personal responsibility over the camping trip and over the relationship as a whole. It helped me to show up as a better lover, as a better person, as a more empowered person, as somebody that is pleasant and enjoyable to be around. And, when I say pleasant and enjoyable, I don't mean, I'm sure that there was still some conflict, and I'm sure there was still some chaos, and I am not always the cutest. I'm not always the epitome of cuteness in times of stress, right? So it's not about bypassing any of that difficulty, but it is about taking responsibility for how you're showing up. The lesson of the Lovers has us stop externalizing anything that should be coming from within. I was able to adjust how I was showing up to that trip and to the relationship as a whole, even though my partner was still, being an annoying ass. With peace and love. It was no longer about the circumstances, and it was no longer about how he was, but instead it was more about how I was. I had the power to make this great to a certain extent, right? And there are certain things that are completely outside of our control. And I always have power to show up with my power, to show up reclaiming my power with a sense of responsibility over myself and how I respond to any given situation. The Lovers shows up and has us looking at any area where we are hoping for some other person or some external circumstance to fulfill us and complete us. We can kind of ask ourselves, if you're waiting for your partner to show up differently, if you're waiting for a certain job or a certain circumstance or a certain number in the bank or anything outside of yourself that you find yourself kind of waiting on, anything outside of yourself that you feel like you need in order to be complete or happier or more fulfilled, you get to ask yourself, well, what will that give me? And I didn't do this intentionally. I didn't do this consciously at that time, right? But pulling the Lovers and my belief that this relationship was going to fulfill me, that this camping trip was going to take our relationship to the next level or whatever. I really believed that when I pulled that card. And even though nothing else changed, I showed up as though that were true, right? So if it's if it's a job that you're hoping for and the Lovers comes up for you, or whatever comes to mind as I'm saying this energy is present for us throughout this Aries season, all of us collectively listening to this today. Anything that you're waiting for or hoping for that is outside of you, really sit with it for a moment and ask yourself, what will that give me? What will that give me? What will that do to me and my heart? What will that change about my life and how I'm thinking and feeling about my life? What will that change about how I am showing up to the circumstances I find myself in? If I had more money in the bank account, besides the obvious of besides the obvious of what that would give, energetically, what would that do for you energetically? And can you start to embody that just on your own, even before your external circumstances give it to you? Lelena Simone says, quote, "The primary relationship is with the divine, and all other relationships are a direct reflection of how you honor the primary relationship." Unquote. And that is so important with the Lovers, that it starts with you. It starts with you and your relationship with God or the universe. Your relationship with what is bigger than you, your relationship with your belief in, with your faith in divine compensation, with your belief in your purpose here. It all starts with your relationship with how you meet this human existence, with how you meet your external circumstances. It starts with your relationship with God and then everything else reflects that. Our external circumstances are a reflection of our internal landscape. That can be real bitter medicine, but it is true, and it is so empowering. It can be super bitter medicine, and there are times where that does not feel empowering. There are times where that feels very defeating and kind of awful. But ultimately, learning the lovers and doing that work of reclamation and really finding your personal responsibility and embracing it, it unlocks everything. It is so foundational in manifestation, in having healthy relationships, but it starts with ourselves, our relationship with ourself, our relationship with the divine, and how we are empowering ourselves to show up. And this season, the lover's energy is supported by the Eight of Pentacles. The Eight of Pentacles asks, how are you working? What are you working? How are you engaging with your resources? Can you use your tools a little more intentionally, a little more effectively? It's a time of focus. It's about empowering ourselves to work with what we know, to work with what we've learned, to do the work with the tools that are available to us. The Eight of Pentacles is like eyes on your own paper, buckle down, and devote yourself to the tending and the work that needs to be done. You are capable. You have what you need. You have plenty of resources at your fingertips. And how can you utilize what you have most effectively? It's like devotion and dedication and just really wise utilization of what you know and what you've earned. In therapy, they talk about like a toolbox, right? Where you have different tools to cope with things and different communication tools. And what are your tools? What have you learned? What have you gained? What do you know? What can you work with? Can you believe that you have enough? That you have what you need to do the work that is needed right now? I think that's a really lovely supporting energy for like the card of personal responsibility for the lovers. Next, our lesson for the season. Our lesson for the season is the Seven of Pentacles. And when I pull this card, I think of presence. I think of trusting the timing. It's like having the discernment to know when to get your hands out of things and when to kind of just let things unfold, waiting for things to ripen. Don't overwater your plants. You'll kill them, you know? The Seven of Pentacles teaches us not to take our hands off the wheel. Don't try to rush or control or push a natural process. Where are you focusing your energy? Are you focusing your energy on things that cannot be changed? Is there perhaps a better use of your time and energy and resources? Patience, and learning to embrace this part of the process, which can be sort of frustrating. It can be frustrating to just have to kind of wait and see what happens. It can be frustrating to not have anything to do, right? We like to control. We like to have control. We like to feel like we can affect the change that we need, right? And we can, bringing it back to the lovers. But what we learn in the Seven of Pentacles is wisdom and discernment to know the difference, to know what we can control and what we need to kind of just let unfold. Trust the timing. Don't rush or try to control a natural process, and see if you can enjoy even that stage of your process. And finally, given all of that that which is present for us and that which we are learning. Our anchor for this season is the Justice card, which is interesting because the Justice card represents Libra energy, or is related to Libra energy, and Libra is the polarity to Aries. Like, we'll have a Libra full moon later this week, bringing some balance to all of this. The Justice card is a huge ally, asking what is present right now that you are resisting. This is the radical acceptance. It is what it is. Looking at the facts. What is here? What is the truth? This card helps us to acknowledge where things are out of balance, to acknowledge what exists here, to acknowledge the truth of things, acknowledging what is rather than what we wish could be. What is the truth? And the Justice card and radical acceptance helps us in creating change in our world. It helps us to bring back balance to things. But in order to affect effective change, in order to affect change in our world and in order to bring about more balance, we first have to acknowledge and accept and get real about where things are imbalanced, where we might be perpetuating injustice. I always mention things like addiction and generational trauma and like systemic oppression. When it comes to the Justice card, there are some really massive, heavy, awful things that are not our fault and shouldn't really be our responsibility to change. And maybe we can't change them, right? You can't change if there's generational trauma in your lineage. But the Justice card helps us look at the truth of that and helps us look at where we may be perpetuating bad behavior, unhealthy, unhelpful behavior. If you have generational trauma in your lineage, that is unjust. It's fucking unfair. You don't deserve that, and the people in your lineage didn't deserve it. They didn't deserve to be traumatized. And those things have an impact. It impacts how we show up. And a refusal to look at those things also impacts how we show up. We are the daughters of the silent generations, right? It's a song that's from a song called High Women. Generations before, what do I want to say? It's hard work. It's hard work. It's hard work. And not everybody is willing to do it. Me personally, I have been doing the work and I've been refusing to engage with and participate in harmful, hurtful behavior. And I keep getting the message from humans in my family, in my lineage, that I'm choosing to look at the negative things, or that I should choose to get over it and find the joy in life and, kind of a forgive and forget type mentality, which Sure, yes, there's a place for that. Absolutely, I look for the joy in life. Absolutely, I do. At every turn, right? I'm pretty well versed in that. I'm kind of undecided on how I feel about the whole notion of forgive and forget, but I'm sure there's a place for that too. And part of justice work, part of radical acceptance, part of personal responsibility. I'm not going to lie, I got a little sweaty and nervous talking about this part. Like the generational trauma shit, like family shit, it's tough. It's big stuff, right? And as I was saying, part of my job, part of my work here, not only as like a mother, but just for myself. And, I really feel like part of my responsibility, I was born into this life in these circumstances, in this lineage, because it's my job to look at those things, be with those things, acknowledge those things, honor those things, and look at how and where and when I am contributing to injustice, where I am contributing to unhealthy, unhelpful, maybe even harmful behaviors. Shoving it in under the rug, or trying to just focus on the positive, or that forgive or forget mentality, it would do me a disservice. Like, I am bringing about more balance and more health by truly looking at where things are out of balance and getting really real about it. And then I make different choices, choices that do bring about balance, choices that are based in the truth with a capital T. The other example I always use with this card is my sobriety. This card haunted me the summer that I decided to try and flirt with moderation with my drinking. I was more than flirting. I was like having an affair with a mindset that my drinking isn't too bad. It's not causing problems. I can manage it. I can dabble. I can drink a little bit, right? I was really trying to make that be true. And the justice card was coming up again and again and again and again and again as an ally, right? But also kind of as like a, grab you by the shoulders and shake you a little bit. Like, hey, it's time to look at the truth so that you can fucking change it. And the truth for me is that moderation does not work. So, as an anchor, you get to know your power. And it can be harsh, but it doesn't have to be. But as an anchor, never miss an opportunity to be with the truth and accept the truth and utilize and look at the truth as an ally or as like a roadmap to show you how you can show up, how you can meet the circumstances that you've found yourself born into, whether that includes addiction or generational bullshit or systemic oppression, like whatever that looks like in your unique circumstances. The truth serves as a roadmap to show you your power, to show you what you can change. And it's often a difficult energy because it's often not the easy thing. It's often not what our ego or our brain would prefer. And the more that you can be in what is, the more power you have. It's a superpower. And it's our anchor this month. So the Justice card, Justice energy, is an ally in helping us to get where we want to go, helping us truly embrace our power to create the life that we desire. So that's our tarot reading this week. Or this season, I suppose. I hope it feels helpful for you. I really like the way that all 4 of those cards kind of support each other and enhance each other. It feels like a really beautiful, supportive spread to me. It's not always easy, but it sure feels beautiful to me, especially given the invitations that Aries brings. I think those are really beautifully supportive cards. And with that, let's go ahead and move into the expansive astrology for this week, or for this. That's going to be hard to get used to. Not doing the weekly podcasts is interesting. Let's get into the expansive astrology for this season. We're going to talk about the invitations of Aries season and how you can embrace it to the fullest. Aries gives birth to the new year. And we can fittingly compare Aries energy to a literal birth. I first heard Lindsay Mack describe it this way, and I think it was her description of Aries energy that introduced me to her at all, like in general. I think that's how I was introduced to her, and the rest is history, right? Like most of my foundation of my knowledge of the tarot, or how I use the tarot, comes from Lindsay Mack. And it was all sparked by this comparison of Aries being like a literal birth, being like a newborn. I've been present for birth. I've given birth myself, unmedicated, with very minimal interventions, which is wild. And I'm about to give birth again in a couple of months, which is even more wild. And anyone who has experienced birth in any way, well, maybe except for being born, we've all experienced birth in some way, right? And we all know it is no joke. It is a miracle. Birth transcends time. It is primal. It is fierce. And everyone who witnesses it is aware of birth's power. The world changes when a newborn baby comes. And that newborn baby doesn't care about the tearing. It doesn't care about the work. It doesn't care about the carnage it's leaving behind. It doesn't care about what it took to get there. It doesn't care about the noise it makes as it's learning its new lungs in this new space. It simply does not care how much noise it makes or any discomfort it causes. It is going to arrive. It is going to ask for what it needs, and it's going to make itself known. Shamelessly, boldly, a newborn baby is going to take its birthright to take up space. That's Aries. Aries is like a seed leaving its shell. It creates destruction in the process, bursting through its shell. And we don't know the seedling's inner process, right? We don't know what it's like for the seedling, but maybe it's quite like us. While it is about to expand past the confines of the shell, maybe it's like, oh no, no. This is unsafe. Oh my God. It is safer in here. I have grown to fit this shell quite nicely. It's very cozy. I get everything I need in this shell. I don't really want to burst out of this shell. I like it here. I'm safe here. It would be foolish for me to give up this shell. Dangerous. But it does the damn thing. It does burst out of its shell. It destroys its shell and travels through the darkness with a sense of knowing and trust and faith, following the power of the sun, following the fire to eventually burst through the earth and bloom and become what it knows it needs to be. Aries energy is the seed. It's the newborn. It's the redwood tree, the mountain. It's the emperor. Emily Dickinson said, "How strange that nature does not knock and yet does not intrude." I think that's what we learn with Aries energy. Aries is fire, the element of fire. Fierce energy. Fire has the power to heat and warm and sustain and nurture and cleanse and provide. And it also has the power to fucking destroy and devastate and tear through anything that's in its path. Fire is passion. It's creativity. It's our energy. And Aries brings the fire, baby. So whether you have a lot of fire energy in your chart or not, this is where we evaluate, how do you bring your fire? What is your relationship like with your fire? How do you honor your fire? Are you intentional with it? Do you control and guide your fire? Do you know how to keep it contained and sustained? Or does it aggressively burn and destroy when it finally does make an appearance? Aries invites us to consider how we approach the world, the impression we make, our effectiveness in running our own mini empire. It's our self-confidence in using our voice and taking up space. Let's talk about the Emperor. The Emperor is the number 4 card in the tarot. And you may have noticed that this is the 44th episode, which is a complete divine coincidence. I'm kind of obsessing over that, but it is besides the point. This season, I invite you to really consider, what kind of emperor are you? What kind of leader are you? Are you more of a dictator, or are you a leader? What kind of advocate are you for yourself and for others? How do you embrace power? How do you exhibit leadership and control over your life? Some emperors are quite aggressive. They're more like a dictatorship, unwilling to collaborate or hear feedback, using their fire to burn bridges, a very off with their heads type of energy, Queen of Hearts type of shit, Joffrey Baratheon type of shit. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's the opposite. There's martyrdom and victimhood and an unwillingness to lead your life, over reliance on feedback and guidance from other emperors in your world, or just other people on your council. That's not empowered either. What kind of emperor are you? What kind of emperors taught you how to be an emperor? What kind of emperors do you have to interact with and engage with on the regular? What kind of emperor do you want to be? How can you refine how you're showing up as a leader over your life? How can you take a little more empowered control? How can you learn the delicate balance between like taking feedback from other people who coexist in your kingdom without necessarily losing yourself, right? While maintaining your sense of leadership and conviction and authority. Speaking of the word authority, I speak about this in my program, Retrograde Revival Guide, but considering how are you authoring your life? What are you authoring into your narratives? What are you authorizing into your kingdom? Authority. A good emperor, the best emperors, know how to use their voice, know how to use their space in a way that doesn't crowd anyone else out, in a way that honors other people's authority and their own kingdoms that they're building. The Emperor is a fierce energy, and it can show up in really uncomfortable ways, really contractive, challenging, dickish, overcrowding, destructive ways. And when we do the work, it's about so much more than that, right? It can be helpful and empowered and guiding and powerful. So empowered. But it takes intention. It takes mindfulness. It takes some work. So Aries in alignment, in its most empowered expression, is confident. It is altruistic. It's a leader. It's creative and impulsive, feisty and fierce. Aries is open-hearted and energetic. It's inspiring. It's a fierce advocate. It's optimistic and idealistic and assertive, courageous and unafraid. It has conviction. And when I think of Aries energy, I really think of fierce, beautiful advocacy. On the other hand, disempowered Aries energy is that angry emperor. It's that domineering, impatient, dictating, aggressive, taking up too much space without awareness of its impact, opinionated, destructive, impulsive, can't handle not getting its way. It's that kind of emperor. It can be a beautiful advocate. It can use its fire for good. Or it can be totally out of control, totally destructive. And sometimes there's a need for that. Sometimes there's a need for fire to, be destructive in that way. And sometimes there's a better way. Aries is ruled by the planet Mars, which is the god of war. So we also talk about the tower during Aries season. The tower is ruled by Mars, and it represents some sort of swift change that we usually didn't ask for. it's when something that we've been building, something that we've been maybe living in, something that we've been crafting and building on gets ripped away from us. It's uncomfortable. It's usually not very fun. It's not bad, but it's usually not what we would choose, and that makes it not very fun. And it is actually a gift, and it is totally necessary to knock down old shit towers that are built on faulty foundation, according to outdated plans with outdated materials. It's imperative that those towers do come down, and that it allows us to tend to the foundation that's underneath. It allows us to build a stronger, healthier, more up to code, more aesthetically pleasing, perhaps. It allows us to build a better tower when things get kind of knocked down by that Mars tower energy. An example I like to use for tower energy and how it can actually be helpful and healthy is like in the case of divorce. Divorce isn't fun. People don't get married expecting to divorce, right? And like tower energy is not so much about the divorce itself. It's not so much about the tower that we feel we're losing itself, but rather what is underneath that. That needs to be looked at and tended to. Sometimes losing a relationship against our will, as awful and heart-wrenching as that can be, it illuminates things to us, right? It makes way for us to build something better. And that's that gift. That's the gift that the tower brings. I remember one of the first times I pulled the tower, I was like, what is this about? I was pretty scared of it. And it wasn't pretty. When I when I did uncover what it was about, I literally puked. I'll never forget it. I literally puked. I had such a visceral reaction. It was such a, it shook me, right, to my core. And it did exactly what it promises to do. It uncovered something that was previously unseen or unknown or unacknowledged by me, and allowed me to fix it. And it totally sucked. It totally sucked. But it's beautiful work. It's necessary work. And if it didn't happen, yikes. I don't even want to think about what life would be like if it didn't happen. So this season, really look at what is your relationship like with these things, with swift, unknowing change like the tower. What is your relationship like with your own sense of empowerment and leadership over your life? And what is your relationship like with the other emperors in your life? Which is everyone. Everyone is their own emperor, right? So how do you deal with opposition? How do you deal when things are out of your control? How do you respond? What happens when plans shift on you? How do you deal? What happens when people disagree with you? How do you deal? What happens when people give you feedback that maybe you disagree with, or maybe you don't disagree with, and it's not so pretty, and you have to really face the mirror in a way? Do you become totally contracted and disempowered? Do you become an aggressive, dictating emperor? Or do you stay in alignment and expanded and expansive and willing to go with the flow? Do you react or do you respond? How do you deal with the tower when the lightning strikes and shows you what you need to rebuild? Are you willing to look at that foundation, or do you look away and ignore? Are you willing to look at the ways you've been building a tower that is not quite right? Or do you look away and ignore and kind of just put a poster over the holes in the walls? Do you become very scared and disempowered, contracted and victimized? Lots of love to you if you do, because we all do at times. And do you have to react that way? Can you maintain a space of ease and spaciousness and control, even when the tower you've invested in and spent so long building or making home in has been knocked down? How are you with being a leader? This is your invitation to act as though you are a leader. Act as though you are a model. People do look up to you. Not like a model, like a fashion model, but like a model in that you model how to be. People look to you. They're inspired by you. Because like it or not, people do see you. How does that feel to be seen? Like it or not, people look to you. They look up to you. They like you. They dig you. They look to you to see how you're being and maybe how they should or could be. Whether you're comfortable with that or not, it's true for every single one of you listening. They look to you to see how to be. Do you like that? Are you proud of that? Does it scare you? What are you going to do with your impact? Let's talk about that idea of taking up space. Are you aware of how much space you take up? Are you willing to take up space? Are you aware of how much space you take up, or are you hyper aware of how much space you take up? Now, we're talking about space in really practical ways, like the drawers you take up in the dresser and the amount of space you take up in the subway. No more manspreading. As well as emotional, more abstract ways, like your willingness to call on friends for support without feeling like a burden, or your ability to hold space for other people's emotions without defensiveness or one-upping them or stealing the show. Let's consider some uncomfortable truths when it comes to space too. Things like privilege and oppression. Oppression causes us or forces us not to take the space. It takes the space from us, like someone touching you without your consent. Explore the pieces of you that are the most quiet, the pieces influenced by generational trauma and systemic oppression, racism, sexism, ableism, capitalism. the pieces that have been oppressed and quieted? Are there things in your heritage or ancestry that have been historically quieted or enslaved or shut down? Consider your identities that have been oppressed in society today and historically. What do these pieces of you bring to your table? What do those pieces of you bring to your empire? And how have they been quieted? Oh, how can you honor them and grieve them and give voices to them? That is the justice card, that I was talking about earlier. And Aries also asks us to look at our privilege, look at our whiteness. If you're white, obviously. Did I need to say that? We are asked to look at how we take up space. Living in America, if you are a white person, we literally took this space. In our lineage, we took this space. We stole it. Committed genocide for it. How does that show up for you now? Do you make reparations and hold yourself accountable and responsible for doing what you can to manage your space and amplify oppressed voices? As a white person, you may feel shame or quiet about that. And does your shame keep you from taking an honest look at how you show up to these issues? Don't let your shame keep you from taking an honest look at how you show up to these issues. This is part of the medicine of Aries. Looking at how we take up space, how we've taken space in our lineage, and taking responsibility for the space that we hold. I know a lot of white people don't like to look at this. A lot of white people today don't feel responsible to make reparations because they didn't personally do the stealing and enslaving and genocide and unspeakable, countless, fucking unending other tragic things. And I hear that. And it is your responsibility. I don't know what to tell you. If you don't agree with that, then you're probably not listening to this in the first place. But consider what has made you quiet. Whether that is shame or what identities and experiences, what has made you afraid of expression, expansion, change, advocacy. What needs to be undone here? And Aries also has us consider, what do you do when someone opposes you? What do you do with that? Do you contract in some way? Two ends of the spectrum, like you can either say, off with your head, fuck you, I don't need your opinion, you're wrong, that's not mine, and I'm not going to hold it or look at it. Or on the other hand, is it, oh gosh, you must be right, I must be wrong. Losing your conviction and authority, shifting your opinion because someone opposed you or took up space that wasn't rightfully theirs. How do you handle it when someone has a different opinion or doesn't agree with you? And whether you lean more toward the fuck you, I don't need you, or you lean more toward the, oh my gosh, I must be wrong. Both of those are disempowered, right? How can you show up to opposition or disagreement in an empowered way? Like, taking in feedback it's empowered. Holding your ground and having conviction when appropriate, that's empowered. How can you keep yourself in a place of empowerment, even in the face of opposition? Aries is raw. It's such a raw energy. I think of a child. This season, practice really honoring the impulsive little kid within you who just wants to scream because it feels good, who rocks their toes back and forth, or kicks their legs while they're watching TV just because it feels good. The little kid within you who demands play or naps or food, right? My toddler, one of his most used phrases is, eat more. And he says it so cute. And he says it a million times a day. Eat a more, eat a more. Children have such a brilliant ability to follow what feels good without guilt or shame or judgment or even a second thought. You are innocent and impulsive. You know what you want, and you know how to get it. When is the last time you took a nap without doing calculations and bartering with yourself? Okay, I'll sleep for 30 minutes now, and then I promise I will hop on the treadmill for an hour. Or like eating what tastes good without guilt and shame and bartering with yourself. Dig into this idea. Adopt an attitude of sacred impulsivity, empowered impulsivity. Moderate yourself, right? Don't become an unmanaged, unhinged fire. Be reasonable. Parent yourself. And practice digging into that piece of you, that raw piece of you, that childlike piece of you. The phrase for Aries is, I am. So this season, you consider, what are your identities? Who are you? Who are you when you're in church versus when you're in the store versus when you're at your mom's house versus when you're at the bar versus when you think no one is watching? What are you to yourself and to others? It's a big question to start the astrological year with. I am. What are you? You are a multifaceted, miraculous, crazy, wild, organic, raw, complicated human being. Sparkly, magical creature. There's a lot to you. Who are you? Try to take away the expectations placed on you by you and by others. This is the start of a new year, and it comes after Pisces season, where we do look at this idea of self-undoing. Take away the expectations and think of your most raw, organic self. What do you know to be true? What are your convictions? What have you been through? What do you know? What gives you the right? Like literally, what do you bring to the world? What gives you the right to show up in the full force of what you are? What do you know? What do you bring? I am. What are your expected selves? The ways you are expected to be? The hats or masks you wear? What does the world expect you to be in all of your different identities? And how do you manage these expectations? Do you ride along with them and adopt them for yourself? Do you rebel against what is expected of you? Try to welcome some undoing there. What is inauthentic for you? What are you not? What do you know you are not? It's normal to have different roles and masks and identities at different times in different situations, and you want to move away from inauthenticity. The goal is to be as close to organic and authentic and congruent and in alignment to your truest self as close as possible, as often as possible, to that authentic congruence. How do you take space when you're alone? When you're ordering coffee and they get it wrong? How do you take space? Do you fart in front of your partner? Is that allowed to you? You know, that's a way of taking up space. I'm laughing because it's like so true, right? I did not fart in front of my partner for a very long time, for probably years. And there was one time we were waking up in the morning one day and he said, you know, you farted in your sleep last night. It sounded like a clap. That's what he said verbatim. And I know for sure because it is imprinted on my mind because I was I was absolutely mortified. I was so mortified that he said it sounded like a clap. I wanted to die because I had been working so hard to never fight or never fart in front of the man. And then my body betrayed me while I was unconscious. I'll never forget the way he said it and the way it made me feel. So that's really silly, but it's it's a real example of like how you take up space. And if you allow yourself to have bodily functions in front of somebody that you're building a fucking life with, you know, and some people are just maybe just plain uncomfortable with that. And like, you know, it's okay, but maybe it's something to evaluate. And one day you're gonna fart in front of your partner, you know, it's gonna happen. How are you gonna feel about it? Oh, yikes. And it brings up like this idea, like many of us were raised to be seen and not heard, right? Not just our flatulence, but in like more serious, more worse ways, right? The idea that good kids are quiet kids who don't have needs, right? Are you willing to expand and be heard and take up more space in a sacred and aligned way? Are you aware of how much space you can take, how much space you can hold? Are you willing to step into more space? Are you willing to fart in front of your partner? Are you willing to ask your partner for more space in the sock drawer? Or does that make you feel like you're overtaking? Are you aware when you are overtaking? When you are stepping on toes? Are you willing to hear that without getting defensive? Who are you when you speak? Who are you being when you speak? How do you use your voice? What kind of emperor are you? Passive, assertive, aggressive? when your spouse is being a dumbass, how do you let him know? When your friends are trying to decide between tacos and pizza, and you want tacos, just say you want tacos. Even if everybody else is like, pizza, pizza, pizza. If you want tacos, at least say you want the tacos. It's a matter of principle. Pizza would be just fine, right? Who doesn't love pizza? And even if everybody disagrees, and even if you all end up getting pizza, at least you spoke your mind. At least you said tacos. It's not about the tacos, right? It's about using your voice. How do you use your voice? Especially when it's hard. Especially when it's been challenged. Awareness is the key here, right? When you are aligned and expanded and in trust and making healthy, effective decisions and expressing yourself in a healthy, effective way, you are not taking up too much space. You will not be stepping on toes. If you are making decisions from an aligned, healthy, effective place, you won't be stepping on toes. You won't be taking too much space. I'm going to say it a third time. When you are aligned and in trust and making healthy, effective decisions, when you are intentional and aware and careful, you won't be stepping on people's toes. You won't be taking too much space. That's a rule. As a rule. And if you are a person who is afraid of being too much, taking up too much space, just check in and remind yourself very lovingly, am I aligned right now? Am I in my right to use my voice and take up space? Because you have a right to use your voice and take up space. You have a right to ask for help. You have a right to express yourself. You have a goddamn right to ask for tacos. As long as you're in alignment and making a healthy, effective choice for yourself and expressing it in a healthy and effective way, you are not taking too much space. You have a right to take up space and have a voice, even if no one listens to you. Even if they reject you and laugh at you or disagree with you, you have a right to take up space and use your voice and say the thing. Even if no one listens to you, even if no one respects you, you have a birthright to take the space and to say the thing. And you will never be stepping on toes, and it will be in alignment as long as you are being healthy and helpful and effective and careful in how you express your needs. And if you need help learning to express your needs in a way that is more aligned and expanded and aware and awake, call me. It's what I do. It's my favorite thing to help people work on. As we wrap up, I want you to ask yourself, what would the bravest version of yourself ask for? What would the bravest version of yourself be seeking at any given moment? What would the bravest version of you want for yourself? If you had no fear, how would embodying that change your world? What would open up for you? And what would happen in your world if you did not embrace more bravery, if you were not making decisions from such an empowered place? What would change and what would persist? Do you have the courage to be with and honor and know what you want when you want it, and do you make it known? Do you make choices for yourself? Or do you often seek other opinions? And remember, taking feedback And getting opinions from others is not inherently bad. In fact, it can be empowered. And don't be crippled by caution. You know, you have leadership over your life. Aries brings a lot of opportunity for expansion. It can also bring a lot of opportunity for conflict and burned bridges. It is so potent. And remember, this is the foundation for the rest of the whole year. This is the foundation for everything we do in expansive astrology. If Aries is the newborn, Taurus is the toddler, and we just keep growing from there. So right now, it's time to really create and tap in with and honor who you truly are. Proudly, loudly, I am. And let me know how I can support you as you navigate yourself and take care of yourself and express yourself. Consider this season an experiment of self. That's Aries season. God, I love it. Let me know what your takeaways are. Let me know how all of this lands for you. I would love to support you with this work. It is so foundational. It is so important. It is so medicinal. It is so juicy. It is so relevant in every fucking way, at every turn. This work is so important. So don't skimp on it. It's up to you, mama. And let me just say before I go that doors are currently open for the next round of Retrograde Revival Guide. This round goes from April 17th, 2023 to May 21st, 2023. Doors are now open, and one of the major things that I teach in Retrograde Revival Guide is how to communicate effectively, how to stay empowered even in the face of mishaps and mayhem. So Retrograde Revival Guide isn't based around Aries energy, and it is completely relevant to everything I've been talking about in this episode. So again, if this is something that you would like some support with and would really like to work with, Retrograde Revival Guide might be a really great way for you to practice this Emperor energy, to practice using your voice in an effective, helpful way. So find more information on my website. And a reminder that Meet Your Magic members receive a discount on all of my courses. So if you are not signed up for the Meet Your Magic monthly membership, what are you waiting for? I would so appreciate having you. The membership is the best way to support my work here. It's the best way to support the podcast. It also offers you a monthly tarot reading, as well as an all-access pass to all of my moon circles. It literally doesn't get much better than that. It is so supportive for me. I appreciate those of you who have signed up for the membership more than I can say, more than words. I appreciate it so much, and I hope that it feels super supportive to you too. Again, you receive a discount on all of my courses, including Retrograde Revival Guide. You get a 20% discount as a member. You get a monthly tarot reading. You just have to sign up by the 10th of the month in order to get a reading for that month, and an all-access pass to all of my moon circles. And I have some more things in the works to add to that membership. So just to kind of tease that, but I've also got plenty else going on with Retrograde Revival Guide starting. So don't hold your breath on that. But I do just want to let you know that there's more coming. There's more where that came from. So again, if you are already signed up as a member, I cannot thank you enough. I love you. I'm sending you my love. And if you're not signed up as a member yet, I'm sending you my love too, but I'd love to have you join. Hop on in. I would so love to have you. Okay, on that note, I think that's all I have for you. It's the Aries season episode. I hope that it served you. I hope that you loved it. I hope that it feels helpful and inspiring for you as we move through these next few weeks of Aries season. I will see you, or you will hear from me again for the Taurus season episode, where Taurus so brilliantly builds on this work that we do in Aries. So I'll see you in a couple weeks for that. In the meantime, you can find me at Moon Circles every other Sunday. You can find me on Instagram for free tarot every single Friday on my stories. And you can always shoot me an email if you'd like to work more closely. I do have some room in my schedule to take on a couple more clients before I leave for my maternity leave in the summer. So if it's something you're feeling called toward, if it's something you'd like to do, don't hesitate to hop into a conversation with me and let's chat about it. Let's see about it. I would love to have you. In the meantime, take really good care of yourself, and please know how much I appreciate you and love having you here. I'll see you in a few weeks for Taurus. And yeah, until then, take care. Bye. Now, before you go, let me keep your ear for just a moment. This week's episode is brought to you by www.theselfcarewitch.com, my bread and butter, where you can find more information on my current courses, offerings, and other fun ways to connect with myself and yourself. If you enjoyed this episode and you dig what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to theselfcarewitch.com. I'd truly love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.